You won't believe how a humble maid, forced into marriage with a paralyzed billionaire heir, uncovered a secret so shocking it shattered generations of silence. What she discovered about his past, and her own, will leave you speechless. Stay till the end, because the final twist changes everything. Before we begin this powerful story, make sure to subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon so you never miss a single episode of our inspiring content. If this story moves you, please like, share, and help us reach more hearts around the world. This is more than just storytelling. Each tale carries a meaningful lesson, a message of hope, resilience, and personal growth. Maid is forced to marry an heir in a wheelchair. He is the disabled billionaire who. My name is Ethan Grayson. And once, I had everything. Money. Status. The Grayson Empire at my feet. But when the accident happened, everything collapsed. One drunk driver. One wrong turn. And I woke up in a hospital bed, paralyzed from the waist down. They called it a miracle that I survived. But I did not feel lucky. I felt ruined. My father, a titan of industry, looked at me differently after that. I saw it in his eyes. Not pity, but disappointment. He handed me a wheelchair and stripped me of the future. You are no longer capable, he said. No longer worthy of the company. No longer an heir. So he offered a twisted deal. If you marry by the end of the quarter, I will reconsider your place in the will. A marriage? To someone who would see only the chair, the weakness? It felt like a trap wrapped in a last chance. They brought in candidates. Socialites. Heiresses. Women with polished smiles and eyes full of calculation. And then came her. Maya. The maid who cleaned my study. The one I barely noticed, until now. She was silent, humble, eyes like dusk after rain. My father chose her to humiliate me. Let your pride swallow that, he smirked. A billionaire married to a servant. She said yes. Without hesitation. No demands. No conditions. I stared at her across the aisle that day. The glint of the ring mocking the emptiness in my chest. She stood in a borrowed dress. I sat in my polished chair. We were strangers bound by a cruel arrangement. In the days that followed, I tested her. Cold words. Silence. I pushed her away with every bitter breath I had. But she never raised her voice. She cooked. She cleaned. She sat with me through the long, aching nights. One night, I broke. You are wasting your life with a broken man. She looked at me. No pity. Just truth. You are only broken because you believe you are. Her voice was soft. But it shattered something inside me. For the first time, I let myself cry. And she held me. Not like a nurse. Not like a caretaker. But like someone who saw the man I had buried beneath pain. Maya began to help me train. She wheeled me into the sun. Made me do stretches. Forced me to read again. To think again. You were born to build, she said. Build again. She applied to business school at night. Studied while I slept. Woke up early to help me with rehab. She sacrificed everything, without ever asking for anything in return. And I saw it then. She was not a maid. She was a force. She was the fire I had lost. The company my father built no longer wanted me. So I built my own. From our garage. With nothing but grit, sleepless nights, and Maya's unwavering faith. The world laughed when we launched a tech startup for adaptive devices. They said it was charity work. They said it would fail. But Maya believed. And her belief was stronger than the doubts of the world. Within 3 years, we scaled globally. We designed smart mobility aids that changed lives. We received funding. We won awards. And I was no longer the Grayson heir. I was Ethan Grayson, founder of Phoenix Systems. And yet, success felt empty without her. One evening, as we watched the sun set over our tiny balcony, I whispered, "Why did you marry me that day?" She looked at me, her eyes wet with quiet thunder. Because I saw someone the world had given up on. And I knew what that felt like. But before I could answer, the phone rang. It was my father. Weak. Frail. Asking for me. begging for help. And in that moment, I was no longer the broken son. I was the man Maya helped rebuild. I stood, on crutches but tall. And I answered. I walked into his hospital room. The same man who once looked at me like a burden now lay there with tubes in his arms and fear in his eyes. He turned his head slowly, his voice thin as paper. I thought you would not come. I did not smile. I did not gloat. I simply said, I came because Maya would have. He looked confused, then ashamed, as if hearing her name reminded him of everything he had failed to be. Silence sat between us, heavy, unforgiving. Then he whispered, I made a mistake, Ethan. I judged you by your legs, not by your spirit. And I thought choosing Maya would punish you. But it looks like she saved you. I wanted to hate him, to walk out and let him feel the same abandonment I once felt. But Maya's voice echoed in my memory. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is freedom. So I nodded. I forgave you a long time ago. But I will never be your heir again. I have built something better. A life with meaning. A life with her. He closed his eyes. A tear rolled down his cheek. I envy you, he said. I left the hospital without looking back. The weight on my shoulders lifted. Outside, the sky was turning amber. Maya waited near the car, a book in her hand, her scarf fluttering in the wind. When she saw me, she stood. I wrapped my arms around her, held her close. The scent of cinnamon from her hair, the warmth of her chest against mine, felt like home. I whispered, You gave me my life back. She smiled. I only reminded you who you were. But life was not done testing us. The next morning, I received a letter. It was from a lawyer. My father had made changes to his estate. And in the fine print, there was something I never expected. Maya's name. He had left her the majority share in the Grayson Corporation. Not me. Her. I froze. The paper trembled in my hand. My heart pounded with questions. Was this a trap? A final manipulation? Or had he truly seen her worth? When I showed her the letter, she went silent. Her hands shook. Tears welled in her eyes. I never asked for this, she whispered. I only wanted you. I took her hand. I know. But maybe this is not a burden. Maybe it is a sign that everything we endured was for something greater. We stood there, surrounded by the sunlight and the ghosts of our past. Neither of us said a word for a long time, because we both knew this was only the beginning of a new battle, a new purpose, a new chapter. And Maya, she was no longer just the maid, nor the wife of a disabled man. She was about to become the woman who would change the face of a broken empire. And I would walk beside her, with or without the chair. The boardroom was colder than I remembered. Steel chairs, frosted glass, the scent of old power and silent war. Maya stood at the entrance, wearing a modest black suit, hair pinned, eyes steady. She looked nothing like the maid they once overlooked, but everything like the leader they now feared. The executives stared as we entered, men who once whispered behind my back, who pitied my wheelchair, who scoffed at our marriage. Now their eyes darted nervously, because the letter from my father was clear. Maya was the majority shareholder. She took her seat at the head of the table. I sat beside her, not as a shield, but as her equal, her partner. The CFO leaned forward, gravel in his voice. Mrs. Grayson, what are your intentions with this company? Maya looked at him, her voice calm but unshakable. My intention is to restore what greed has hollowed out, to lead with integrity, to give back what was taken from the workers, the small investors, the families who trusted us. A silence followed, one thick with resistance, but also with awe. I could see it, the cracks forming in the walls of old power, because she was not asking for permission. She was claiming her right. The same men who once dismissed her as a background shadow now leaned in, listening. Her voice rose, not louder but deeper. There was a time I scrubbed these floors. I heard your secrets when you thought no one was listening. I saw the waste, the lies, the fear you buried beneath your suits. Someone shifted uncomfortably. Another cleared his throat. She continued, I am not here for revenge. I am here for redemption. For this company. And for all the people it forgot. Then she turned to me. Her eyes softened. I learned that from him. In that moment, I felt something I had never truly known. Pride. Not in my own success, but in hers. But just as the meeting began to end, a lawyer entered the room, envelope in hand. He whispered something to Maya. She frowned. Her hands clenched. When the lawyer left, she turned to me, her voice low. There is something you need to see. She handed me the envelope. My name was on it, written in my father's hand. I opened it slowly. Inside was a letter. And a photograph. The photo was of my mother. But she was not alone. In her arms was a child. A boy. Not me. And on the back of the photo, in faded ink, to the son I never told you about. My vision blurred. My breath caught. Maya reached for my hand. Ethan, what does it mean? I looked at her. At the woman who helped me rebuild my soul. And whispered, I think I have a brother. The photo slipped from my fingers. It landed on the polished boardroom table, staring back at me, like a ghost from a story I never knew I was part of. A brother. Somewhere out there. My blood. Hidden from me. Hidden from the world. My heart pounded like war drums in my chest. Not from anger. Not yet. From disbelief. Maya stood slowly, her hand still resting gently on mine. I will give you a moment, she said softly, and left the room with quiet grace. I picked up the letter. The paper was rough. The handwriting uneven. Familiar yet foreign, like hearing my father's voice in a stranger's mouth. Ethan, I failed you in more ways than I can count. But there is one truth I never had the courage to tell. Before I met your mother, I loved someone else. Her name was Alina. She gave birth to my first son, your brother. But I was too much a coward to stand by her. I left, built a new life, buried the past. I do not know where he is now, only that he exists. And I believe you may need him one day, or he may need you. The words carved through me like slow fire. I sat back in my chair. The weight of legacy, betrayal, and a bloodline fractured by silence. It pressed down on my spine heavier than the wheelchair ever had. I wanted to hate my father again. But I could not. He was gone. And he had left me with a truth. That would change everything. When Maya returned, she said nothing. She simply placed a cup of tea beside me. Still steaming. Still kind. Still her. I turned to her. I need to find him. She nodded. No hesitation. Just the quiet strength that had saved me once before. Then we will, she said. We spent the next few days digging. Old records. Obscure addresses. Financial trails buried in dust. And then, a lead. A town. On the edge of nowhere. A mechanic shop registered under the name. Elian West. It was not much. But something about the name felt like a whisper I had heard in my dreams. We drove through the night. Silence between us. Not heavy. Sacred. The sun had just begun to rise when we arrived. The sky painted in soft blues and golds. The mechanic shop stood humble, worn. A place where time moved slower. Where truth might finally come home. A man stepped out. Grease on his hands. Lines carved deep into his face. He looked about my age. When he saw me, he froze. And in that moment, I knew. His eyes were my eyes. Same storm gray color. Same way they narrowed when unsure. Neither of us spoke. Maya stepped forward. Are you Elian? He nodded slowly. Voice low. Yes. Who's asking? I wheeled closer, stopped just a few feet from him. My throat tightened. I could barely speak. I think, you are my brother. His eyes flared. He took a step back. Then another. No. That's not possible. It is, I said. I have proof. I reached into my coat and handed him the photo. His hands trembled as he took it. His eyes scanned it, stopped, locked onto the face of the woman holding him. Our mother. I never knew who he was, Elian whispered. He left before I could ask. My mom, she never talked about him. A long pause. The kind that stretches across decades of silence. Then Elian looked up at me, eyes burning. So why now? Why are you here? I swallowed, hard, then said what I had come to believe. Because I lost everything once. And someone saved me. I think maybe, now it is my turn to do the same. Elian stared at me, his jaw clenched. His fingers gripped the edges of the photo, like it was the last fragile truth in a world full of lies. Then he turned away, walked back into the garage. The clang of metal echoed behind him, sharp, final. I sat there in the growing silence, watching my own blood disappear behind shadows. Maya placed a hand on my shoulder. He is not ready, she said gently. Would you be? I shook my head. I do not know. But I cannot force this. The garage door creaked again. Elian came back. Not with anger, but with a box. Old, dusty, held together with brittle tape and careful hands. He dropped it beside me. This was hers, he said. My mother's. She kept it hidden in the attic. I never opened it. Not until last year. He opened the lid. Inside were letters. Dozens. Hundreds. All addressed to Thomas Grayson. All unsent. All unopened. My heart cracked. Each envelope a scream never heard. Each word a mother's quiet war with silence. Elian picked up one letter. Read it slowly. His voice trembled. I see his eyes in Elian. Every time he laughs, it haunts me. Thomas, why did you leave? He looked up. Red-rimmed eyes. Wounded pride. You are not responsible for his choices, I said. And I am not here to erase your pain. He studied me. The chair. The scars. The woman beside me. Why did you really come? He asked. Maya answered before I could. Because family is not built in blood alone. It is built in the courage to forgive. Elian's lips parted, but no words came. He nodded once, barely, then looked away. We close at 5, he said. But his voice was softer now. You can stay, if you help me change the oil on that Chevy. I smiled. Maya chuckled. I guess that is progress. And so, under the rising sun, my brother and I got our hands dirty. We did not talk much, but something passed between us. An understanding. A beginning. That night, we stayed in town. A small inn with creaky floors and the scent of pine. I could not sleep. Too many thoughts. Too much emotion still rising in my chest like tides I could not tame. Maya sat beside the window, reading by the dim light. I watched her. The way her lashes caught the light. The curve of her neck. The quiet strength in her presence. She closed the book. Turned to me. Do you regret coming? I shook my head. No. But I am afraid. Of what? She asked. That I have found a brother. But I do not know how to be one. She leaned in, kissed my forehead, held my face in her hands. You do not have to know, she whispered. You just have to stay. And then, a knock at the door. 3 soft raps. Measured. Uncertain. Maya stood. Opened it. There stood Elian. In his hand. A photograph. He stepped inside. Eyes flickering with something I could not yet read. I found this in the box, he said, handing it to me. This is not just our story, Ethan. It is hers too. and I think we have only seen half of it. I looked at the photo. It was of my mother, holding a letter, standing beside a young woman. Maya gasped softly, "Ethan, that is my mother." My blood turned cold. My breath caught in my throat. I looked again, and realized she was right. My mother. Her mother. In the same photo. Decades ago. Smiling. Connected. Before either of us were ever born. My hands trembled as I held the photo. Time seemed to slow, stretch, blur. Two women, our mothers. Bound by a moment frozen in faded ink and soft sunlight. Maya stepped closer. Her breath caught. "I have seen this dress before," she whispered. It was tucked away in an old trunk. My mother never spoke of it. Never explained who the woman beside her was. I stared into my mother's eyes in the picture. Younger. Full of light. And something else. A secret smile. As if the photo itself held its breath. Elian leaned against the wall, arms folded. His voice low. "Do you think they were friends?" "No," Maya said softly, her eyes not leaving the image. "I think they were more than that." We stood in silence. The kind that hums with possibility. With the weight of a story buried under layers of silence and sacrifice. Elian reached into his jacket. Pulled out a crumpled envelope. "I found this too." He handed it to me. The paper was yellowed. Addressed only with two initials. MG. I looked at Maya. She nodded. That was her maiden name. I opened the envelope slowly. Inside, a letter, handwritten in looping cursive. "My dearest May, we made promises beneath that sycamore tree. But life had other plans. I married Thomas. You married silence. But I never stopped missing you. And I never stopped loving the parts of me that only you saw." My mouth went dry. My heart hammered in my chest. May. That was Maya's mother. And this was written by my mother. I looked at Maya. Her eyes shimmered. Not with fear. Not with shame. But with 1,000 unspoken truths. That suddenly began to make sense. She sat down slowly. As if the letter had taken the strength from her bones. "All my life," she whispered. She kept a photo by her bedside. A woman with dark hair. A mystery she never explained. "And now I know. It was your mother." Elian exhaled. Long. Heavy. "So what does this mean?" I looked at both of them. The woman who gave me life. The woman who saved it. And the brother I never knew I had. "It means," I said quietly, "that our story began long before us. With love that could not speak its name. With sacrifices too painful to pass down." Maya held the letter to her chest. "I think she chose silence to protect me," she said. "Maybe she thought the world would not understand." "And now?" Elian asked. Maya stood. Straighter than before. Eyes burning with something deeper than grief. "Now we understand. And we carry their story forward. With honesty. With courage. And without shame." A soft knock at the window startled us. A young woman stood outside. Holding a manila envelope. She looked nervous. Conflicted. As if unsure whether to walk away or walk through a door she had waited her whole life to find. Maya opened the door. The woman looked at her. Then at me. Then at Elian. "I think one of you is my father," she said. The air cracked. No one moved. Elian stepped forward. Eyes wide. Disbelief written across his face. "What is your name?" he asked. She held her breath. Then said softly, "Alina. Alina West." The same name as Elian's mother. My brother fell to his knees. Tears filled his eyes. Maya reached for my hand. And I realized. This was not just a reunion. This was the opening of a legacy. That had been waiting to be claimed. A family. Not broken. But finally becoming whole. Elian wept openly. His face buried in his hands. Years of hardened silence breaking. like waves against the shore of truth. Alina knelt beside him. She did not need answers. She only needed presence. And he gave her that. The trembling embrace of a father who never knew he had a daughter. Maya stood with me in the doorway. Her hand gripped mine. Not for support, but to remind me that this, all of this, was born from love. Not blood. Not legacy. But love forged in pain, perseverance, and truth. That night, we sat together around a table. No titles. No power. Just people. Telling stories. Healing through memory. Forging bonds from the broken pieces of the past. Alina shared photos. Elian told of long nights in the garage. Dreams he buried under oil-stained rags. Maya laughed quietly. A sound that always pulled me back from the edge. And I finally spoke of my darkest days. Of waking up in that hospital. Of the shame. Of the anger. Of the woman who reached into my silence. And pulled me back to life. Maya. The woman my father thought would ruin me. But who had become my reason to rise again. When dawn broke, it was not just the sun that rose. It was us. Together. Stronger. The moral of our story. Life does not always begin in the way we expect. Sometimes it starts in ashes. In silence. In pain. But the measure of who we are is not found in our titles, our wealth, or our past mistakes. It is found in the courage to change. To forgive. To choose love where bitterness could live. Maya taught me that. Elian reminded me of that. And Alina gave me hope that even the lost can find their way home. Sometimes family is not something you inherit. Sometimes it is something you build. Brick by brick. Heart by heart. And that, perhaps, is the greatest legacy of all. Thank you for listening to this heartfelt story. If it moved you, share it, comment below, and let someone know. You are never alone.